Friends, please go ahead and take a seat. Let's prepare our minds and our hearts, our ears for the word of the Lord. Hi, everyone. My name's Paul. You may not have seen me. I'm a 9 o'clocker, and I'm not ashamed of it. It's good to see you. The reason I'm up here today is because Mike was kind enough to mentor me in an internship earlier this year for one of my classes at seminary. And after he passed me, which I was grateful for, he gave me this opportunity to come up here and speak to you today. So I'm so happy to be up here. Thank you so much for this opportunity, to you for listening, and to him for this as well, of course. I've been a member of Harvest since 2021. I'm a small group leader. I serve in Harvest Kids, so I've been around, so I'm happy to be here. Please turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 14. We'll be looking at verses 1 through 15, but that is 1 Samuel chapter 14. While you turn there, I guess I'd like to bring up a little quirk that I've noticed. Most people have heard that saying that goes something like, the only two things that are guaranteed in life are death and taxes, right? Have you heard that one? In my experience, it's usually after like that brand new 16-year-old gets that job and they're doing all the math. It's the first time they've ever done math that they care about doing to see what that paycheck is going to look like. And then they get there and they get about like 20% taken off right off the top because Uncle Sam gets paid first, right? And so that's really interesting to think about. Like, everyone knows it's coming besides the person in the situation, and they're not prepared for it. And we can also find ourselves in a similar situation as Christians with crisis, because crisis is pretty much guaranteed in our lives, not only death and taxes, right? We know that things will come our way and that they will be challenging for us. And a crisis can last anywhere from 2 minutes to 20 years. But it's coming. And so today I want to take some time to prepare ourselves for it. It comes in a myriad of ways and avenues. It can be a relationship, finance, health, whatever these things are. Usually our crisis is something that we value being threatened in some way, shape, or form, whether it be our stability, our family, our job. Those are usually what we see in a crisis. And so since we know it's coming, as Christians, we should be preparing for it. And so I want to take this time to look at 1 Samuel chapter 14. And I chose this passage because it was a clear example of faith for me when I first became a Christian. Believers, I want this passage to give you confidence to bet on God in each and every situation that you find yourself in. If there's anyone here today who's not given their lives over to Christ as Savior and King, I want you to know that you have someone available to you at all times who's willing to help you in every moment of your life, and that you can put your faith in Him for salvation. The question we'll be looking at today is, what does faith look like in a crisis? Our answer is going to be our big idea, and that answer is faith in a crisis looks like relying on Jesus for results that only He can provide. This passage is going to break that answer down for us into 3 parts. Each one is as important as the last, so let's jump into the first one. First point is faith in a crisis helps you take a step forward. It helps you take a step forward. So let's kind of set the stage, because I just picked 1 Samuel 14. Let me run you up on what's been happening. So the time of the judges has ended. Saul has been brought in as king of Israel, and he is not it. He is not performing the way that you would want a holy king of Israel to perform. He's a beautiful man, but he's cowardly. He's overly focused on ritual and forgetful of simple obedience. And at this time in his reign, he is at war with the Philistines. And the beef between the Israelites and the Philistines goes back generations. And so here we are in 1 Samuel chapter 14. The author has been showing us in chapter 13 that Saul is prone to make mistakes. And now he's going to prove it again with this story, except he'll be juxtaposing Saul making another mistake and Jonathan taking a step forward. And this is a brutal time in history. Don't forget that, okay? There is deep animosity between these two groups. They are in a crisis. They're in the broader situation of war, but today they're going to find themselves in a very tight situation of decisions that need to be made in this battle that they're partaking in. Let's go ahead and read verse 1. It says, "One day Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to the young man who carried his armor, 'Come, let us go over to the Philistine garrison on the other side.' But he did not tell his father." So right as we're dropped into this story, this is the very beginning of the story, and right as we're put into it, Jonathan is doing something. He's moving forward in some way, shape, or form. He's actually moving secretly, but he does bring along a trusted friend, a trusted warrior, someone that's near his side, someone that he trusts. He's his armor bearer. He's like a caddy for him. He's holding his various weapons for different situations and things like that. Verse 2 says, "Saul was staying in the outskirts of Gibeah in the pomegranate cave at Migron. The people who were with him were about 600 men, including Ahijah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord in Shiloh, wearing an ephod, and the people did not know that Jonathan had gone." So we see in verse 1, Jonathan's moving, and then we see in verses 2 and 3 that Saul is encamped with many more resources than Jonathan has as he goes on this mission. He has 600 men. He has someone with an ephod with him. He's brought all of these things, and he's in a cave. He isn't taking any action. He's waiting for something. Saul made sure to bring all of these things with him, and yet they're just sitting in a cave. So the author turns us back in verses 4 and 5 to Jonathan. It says, "Within the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistine garrison, there was a rocky crag on the one side and a rocky crag on the other side. The name of the one was Bozez, and the name of the other Sina. The one crag on the north in front of Michmash, and the other on the south in front of Geba." So we see Jonathan going up to face these Philistines, and it's not a simple path. It's not guaranteed success. It's treacherous. These rocks are named. Not often do we come across named rocks, and the names are not things that would inspire confidence in journeying up them. One of their names means the gleaming one. So the rock might be very shiny or slippery when wet, and the other one means the thorny one. So he's got a slippery part of his adventure, and he's got a thorny part of his adventure, but he's still going on to do what he needs to do. And so we see that Jonathan is a man who's dedicated to his task and willing to get there through a difficult path. This also adds on the knowledge we have of Saul as a king. See, Saul is notorious for being everything you think you want, everything you think you should bring in a situation, and then all of those things, all of that preparation, disappointing you. Saul is regularly seen focusing on the ritual and religion over relationship with God. In this passage, Saul is surrounded by men and weapons, but he hides. Sometimes when we're lost and we feel alone, we need to refocus on what matters, which is our relationship with Jesus. And having faith to take a step forward instead of trying to plan for everything. Because friends, and no matter what your crisis may be, God is in control of what's going on in your life. That's something we have to accept. But it's a good thing to accept. God is with us, and so the same way that he's allowed something to come into our lives, he can guide us out of whatever it may be. Taking a step forward in faith means trusting God in your moment of fear. Now, to be clear, you can take a fast step forward or you can take a slow step forward. But what the author is showing us is that God does not approve of idle men. He does not approve of idleness. We see earlier in the book that Eli fails to teach his sons not to behave in a certain way. They're terribly misbehaving with women that they have no business misbehaving with. And he tells them, like, hey, can you stop? I heard this thing. I don't like what I'm hearing. And they're like, leave me alone, Dad. And that's kind of where it ends, right? But here, we see that we should be moving, not idle, not completely idle. And we also shouldn't necessarily base the correct path off of ease, okay? I feel like a lot of times we ask God, make this easy for me, get me through, and then I'll know that's what you want me to do. If it's the easiest thing in the world, then you're looking out for me. Thanks a lot, right? But Psalm 23 says he brings us through the valley of the shadow of death. Through the valley. So you're still there. You're still forced into the situation, and it's not something that you want to be in, but he pulls you along, and that's where the growth is. And the reason that the psalmist isn't afraid isn't because it's easy, right? He's in the valley of the shadow of death. Why is he comforted? It says, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So let your faith in God comfort you as you try and find out what that step forward is for you. And it doesn't have to be drastic. Like I said, there's a fast step and a slow step. The perfect example of a slow step forward, but maintaining your faith, maintaining your confidence in God, is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's right before he knows that his crucifixion will begin, and he's praying and praying and praying to God, if this be your will, I would like this cup to pass from me, but your will be done. He goes back to his friends and he says it, and they are asleep, and he prays again. He ends up praying the same thing 3 times. It says prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words again. That's what it says in Matthew. And eventually he gets his answer. So he took that slow step and he gets his answer from God. He says, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. So you can play it fast like Jonathan, or you can play it slow. But what you can't do is sit in a cave and hide. We can't be idle, but we can take it slow if that's what the situation calls for. So for you and what you're going through, I want you to remember that you can do either or, but what is of the most paramount of importance is your relationship with God. Jesus is focused on God, and then we'll see later on that Jonathan has God on his mind as well. So in our situations, we need to be focused on him and keep him as the priority. He's the one who can guide us out. We need to be having a connection with him. We can pray for guidance and wisdom. He is available to us the same way he was available to Jesus. We can read through the Bible. The New Testament has doctrine for us that we can learn and guide our lives in. Or we can turn to the Old Testament and see tons of stories about what you should do, and then perfect examples of also how you shouldn't behave, like in this very story with Saul. So we have things available to us. These lessons were given to us for these times that we'll face. So faith in a crisis takes a step forward. That can look like prayer, and it can look like climbing rocky crags, but it doesn't look like being faithless and hiding from your fears. Let's head to our second point. Point number 2 is this: faith in a crisis sounds like a gamble. It sounds like a gamble. Continue reading in verse 6. Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor, "Come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. This is it. This is what this whole story culminates to. This is the thesis statement of the entire story. Don't miss it. It's simple and it feels dangerous, but what he says is it may be. Jonathan does not know. He has climbed rocky crags. He's shown up in front of soldiers, or he's about to, and he doesn't know how it's going to play out. Sometimes that's what our faith looks like. But he knows God. And that's what's key here. He knows that nothing can hinder the Lord. He knows that he can win this battle by many or by few. Jonathan took the few route. He knows what God is capable of doing. He's not focused on how God is going to do it. He's not focused on what Jonathan needs to do to get to the next step. That's not what he's focused on. He has a relationship with God that's based on trust. And he's certain in God's ability, but not the details of his plan. So often we want a guarantee on the how. A how is more comforting than who, right? So if I tell you, oh yeah, this plumber is coming over, he's got 20 years of experience, right? You're like, okay, that's cool. That's a good who. And then the plumber looks and he's like, yeah, it's going to be this much, and we'll get it done. What would comfort you more in that situation? Well, tell me what's going on, man. How are you going to fix this? How is this never going to happen again? We want a how. But this isn't a situation where we get to demand that from another human being. We are in a relationship with God, where he has graced us with knowing who he is. And so that's what we need to be focused on, is the who. We're focused on the who of Jesus Christ, the who that comes down from heaven and gives his life for you when you don't deserve it. That's the who that we should be focused on. I remember a preacher put it one way. He said, you got two options, right? You've got some businessman that promises you $2 million, and you've got another businessman that promises $2 million. One says, I'm good for it. I'll be back, right? And I'll come and give you the $2 million. One gives you $1 million up front, and then he's like, I'm good for it. I'll be back. I'll give you the other $1 million. Who are you going to trust more? You're going to trust the person who's already put the down payment. Christ's down payment was his life. We know he's coming back because he already came the first time. It's not a big leap. He's the only man in history that brings himself back from the dead. So we need to be focused on that who of Jesus Christ. We need to be focused on him bringing us through our issues. We need to live our lives with the full confidence of God and who he is, but not arrogantly assume how he will get us to where we want to be. We see this perfectly in Daniel with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as Nebuchadnezzar asked them to bow down in front of the idol. Listen to the certainty and confidence that they have in God and who he is, but not how he's going to save them. They say, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Their confidence is in who God is and what he's capable of. Don't find yourself limiting God to how you think he can save you in a situation. They knew who could save them. They didn't know how. And it sounds like a gamble. When was the last time you put your life on the line for an if or an if not? That's not something we want. That's not what we want to do. So we see Jonathan, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego consistently across the Old Testament. We see this. They're willing to stake their lives on who God is and not on the certainty of how God will deliver them from their situation. And it feels risky. And it sounds like a gamble, but really it isn't. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. They have an assurance of God, but they do not see how these things will come apart or come to pass. They were fully convinced of something, and that conviction was in God. And honestly, we see this is God's MO. All over and over and over again, he chooses to do things in a way that only he can do them so that you know he's the one who did it for you. Still, we'll find a way to put the glory on ourselves, right? But I mean, think of Moses talking to a burning bush, not knowing how you want him to liberate a nation from the world's superpower. And as they're leaving the nation, they're being gifted gold and jewels from the citizens of the world's strongest nation in Egypt. So we see Moses win against Pharaoh in a miraculous way. We see Gideon forced to fight with so few numbers that you know that usually any army the size of Gideon's would have been so outmatched they'd have no hope. We see Jesus as well. Jesus' story in the Gospels is battling with people who say, no, this is how God's going to do it. And they say, no, it's not. I promise. I'm doing it right now. We see Jesus fulfilling prophecies in front of these various Israelites, and they don't recognize him. They don't recognize the prophecies that they're fulfilling. So God has a unique way, even when he tells us a little bit about how, even when he gives us a prophecy, we don't see exactly how it's going to play out. So we need to be focused on the who, because if they had known who Jesus was, if they had paid attention to what they were supposed to see in the man of the Messiah, they would have recognized him. And some did. But yes, let's also notice that Jonathan isn't acting out of passion in this moment. He's not angry. He's not lustful. He's not filled with joy. It's a conviction thing. And conviction can strike in any emotional state. And Jonathan knows who God is, and he's convicted about who God is and how he should live his life for God with the law of Moses. You know, maybe he's heard some of the stories from Joshua and Judges. Maybe those books are already written down. We don't know, but we definitely know he has the law of Moses, and that might be it, or a couple more books on top of that. How much more do we have? How much more can we grow and know Christ? There's power in the name of Jesus, right? We know that name. Jonathan didn't know that name, but still he went through this miraculous story. When Peter walks by people that are lame on the streets, he says, rise in the name of Jesus. That alone is a masterful lesson in how much more we have than Jonathan had. We can go all across the Bible to find stories about who God is. And we see him so clearly personified in Jesus Christ. Let's keep reading in verse 7. And his armor bearer said to him, do all that is in your heart. Do as you wish. Behold, I am with you, heart and soul. Then Jonathan said, behold, we will cross over to the men and we will show ourselves to them. If they say to us, wait until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place and we will not go up to them. But if they say, come up to us, then we will go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand. And this shall be the sign to us. So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, look, Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden themselves. And the men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said to his armor bearer, come up after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet and his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer killed them after him. So in these verses, we see Jonathan make a bet of sorts, okay? And this is one where he's betting his life on on God and his ability to bring him through in this situation. If they say one thing, I'll do A. If they say another thing, I'll do B. In the middle of a war, on a secret mission with no backup, they're willing to bet their lives on God. But that's not what he was thinking about. He was thinking about God. He asked for a sign from God. And he doesn't say, God, show me a sign that's just so spectacular and miraculous that I have to know it's you. He doesn't need lightning on a sunny day, right? He asked for a very specific sign. And I will do this. When you're in a situation and you feel like you need something from the Lord, Paul, this is not covered in Romans. What I'm going up, this is new, next level. No one's ever seen this before. I need a sign. Okay, fine. You need a sign. But when you go up and ask, don't ask for something that's so stupendous, I suppose, that it's almost strange. Have faith in the receiving communication that you have from God. Be specific. And when you get your answer, obey. That's what we see from Jesus in Gethsemane. Your will be done, your will be done, your will be done. Okay, they're coming. He gets his answer. He goes to the cross. He obeys. Jonathan, come up to us. He gets his answer. He goes up. He obeys. God is not silent to us. And sometimes I know it can feel that way. I've got this big book, and you're telling me all the answers are in there. Every question I've ever run into, or every question I will run into in life. He's not silent, though, even in our lives. So go ahead and follow him when he does speak to you. I do want to take a tiny step back because I don't want you to feel like you have to flip a coin and ask God whether you should go left or right at every situation. See, the thing is, we do have the Bible, and it teaches us so much. We can see that we have it and we can learn from it, but sometimes when we need to communicate with God, sometimes we feel like we need another level of communication with him. And you know, flipping a coin all the time sounds silly. It sounds like, oh, he's not listening to me. He's not going to answer me or anything like that. But keep in mind that God has in the past consistently actually spoken to the Israelites through what seems like a random meme or random means. Okay, so he has the Urim and the Thummim that they would use to make decisions. And even as late as after Judas betrays Jesus in the New Testament, they choose Judas's replacement with lots. Okay, so it seems like random acts, but God is in control of even the random, and so they know that his will be done. They're praying consistently and fasting and things like that, and so we see that, all right? God is in control, and when we need him, he will communicate to us. He's spoken to us through his word, and that's very clear on how we should live our lives in most situations. But certain times do arise where we feel like we need some other type of sign. Just what I want you to get out of this mostly is don't be afraid to do something that feels like taking a risk when it comes to your relationship with God. When you're in a crisis and you don't know how to take your step forward even, whether it's slow, fast, you don't know what to do. You're overwhelmed. Tears are flowing. And it's hard to sit and focus and find the perfect psalm for your situation. Just be ready, because when God shows you what you should do, we must obey him. So far, we've seen that faith in a crisis takes a step forward. Then we saw that it may sound like a gamble. Finally, we will talk about what happens after we step out in our faith. Okay, so point 3 is this: faith in a crisis has lasting impact. Verse 14 says, "And that first strike which Jonathan and his armor bearer made killed about 20 men, within, as it were, half a furrow's length and an acre of land. And there was a panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and even the raiders trembled. The earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. So they succeeded far beyond what they thought they could have. They thought they were going to go and maybe turn the tide of the battle and slay some men, just get a hit, maybe run. But God takes it so much farther than that. There's an earthquake. Jonathan couldn't have planned for an earthquake. In fact, in the following verses, this is what actually ends the battle altogether, because there's so much noise and confusion in the camp that Saul finally steps out of his cave and goes and attacks the Philistines, giving Jonathan that backup that he needed. So keep in mind that you are not the only thing that God has at his disposal. You don't know how he's going to do whatever it is that he's going to do. He can change the weather if he needs to accomplish his situation. I want to tell a quick story about that. I used to work at Raleigh Dream Center, and when I did, one day a woman came up to us, rang the doorbell. I went and I answered it. And she's got a phone in her hand and a piece of paper, and you can tell that she's about to collapse as far as tears go, right? As soon as I open the door, as soon as she tries to speak, she starts to cry. And so I've been thrust into this situation. I don't know what's going on. The reason she had her phone in her hands is because she didn't really speak English, and so we were texting through Google Translate. And then she hands me the piece of paper, and I come to understand that it's an eviction notice. She's about $2,000 behind on her rent. Her husband got injured at work, and so he had been out of work for a long time with a broken back, I believe, and they weren't able to pay the bills. And so what I did was I did what I could do in that time. I helped in the way that we could help, gave her some food and some clothing, and sent her to another organization that specializes in preventing homelessness, right? She goes back, she goes over there, and then she comes back, and we kind of continued the relationship, and I saw her for a few weeks after that. She would come every once in a while, get what she needed to get on her way. And so I'm in a crisis now. I don't know how to step forward, but I took the step that I could at the time, and I'm walking away from the situation thinking to myself, God, where is the glory in this? What are you going to do? Because this is a hopeless situation. She can't even speak English to the people that might be able to help her. Weeks go by, and we have this really big clothing event, and I see her there. And she's grabbing clothes out of this box and sorting through them. And she's smiling. It looked like nothing was wrong with her life. If you would have seen her, you wouldn't have known that that's what she was up against just a month prior. So she went from tears on the doorstep to happily helping us with a little bit of volunteering and getting what she needed from us. She went through a crisis, and God provided. The impact is this. The impact is that we can step into other people's crises, and when you're in your own crisis, when you make it out, you become a story that someone else can tell, that someone else can be empowered by. How many people have read Job's tragic tale, and they get a little bit of encouragement out of it? Even in small group, sometimes I'll hear a prayer request. I just kind of grit my teeth and I'll go, that's tough. That is tough. I do not know what we are going to do. I'm going to pray for you, but I do not know what you do next. And those stories about how we don't know what to do and then God showing up for us, those impact us in ways that we never would have thought. I had a friend who had some unforeseen bills, and somebody gave them a check once, and it was for a couple $100 more than they needed at the time, and the person giving the money didn't know about the situation. That's an inspirational story to me, because God can provide for us in a way that we don't see coming. And then it can change the lives of the people we do tell the story about or tell the story to. I pray that together we can both be, as Christians, loving one another. I pray that we can be, sometimes we'll have to be the person who's down on their luck, who needs the help. Other times we'll be able to be the person who's supporting and giving simple gifts, whether it be money or just making a meal for someone in a hard time, prayers. I want us to be those people as well. So friends, faith in a crisis, it helps you take a step forward. It sounds like a gamble, and it has lasting impact. All of these come together for our big idea, which is faith in a crisis looks like relying on Jesus for results that only he can provide. Your crisis is guaranteed. And believers, you can have, even in a crisis, you can have an amazing effect on others who hold to those same beliefs as you and those who don't. The next time you face a crisis, the Lord will meet you there. Remember that he is always with you. He has the power to save by many or by few. So I want us to take a moment just to bow our heads and pray. I prepared a few points for us to use to mull over the lesson. The first prayer point is this. Let's all take the time to pray that Jesus would show himself to us as a provider and protector in times of crisis. Pray for the Holy Spirit to increase your faith in times of crisis. Pray for wisdom as you make it through your next crisis, whether it be today or tomorrow.